Hi folks, Kevin here. Well, it's August 24th, 2017, and this is an update on the weed composting mini-series I've been doing. And I thought I'd turn the camera around and show you what we've got. So the last update was on August 20th, 4 days ago, and we're at about 158 degrees right here. I moved around. We've stayed above 145 for the last 3 days, and here we're about 146, I guess, somewhere's in there. And so I thought what I'd do is go ahead and turn the pile today. I won't do a time lapse today. It'll be another boring adventure. But you've seen in the previous videos how I turn it. I try to take the outside of the pile, try to fluff it up. In other words, get as much air into the system as possible. The last video in the mini-series and one of my cat litter composting videos, which was quite some time ago, last year I believe, or the year before, there have been some comments about composting. Barry had asked about geez, the pile's looking a little bit dry, and someone else asked, should we be adding more moisture? Should we be watering our compost pile? If you want me to go into more detail, I will in a future video. The short answer is that the pile moisture content has been good. The scientific way, the anal retentive way of really assessing our moisture content, and the ideal moisture content is somewhere between 40 and 60%. If we're getting too much water into the compost pile, the porosity, the little air spaces between the compost material itself gets filled up with water, and then switches to an anaerobic state, and it becomes foul smelling. So that's one way of knowing as well. But again, back to the scientific approach, how to do it. Well, you just go ahead and grab a sample. You want to get a representative sample, so you don't want to get it off the surface of the pile. I'm starting another pile over in another spot there. That's where the flies are here. But you want to collect a sample from under the surface, get a few different places, weigh it, and that's your total weight or your wet weight. Then you want to get the temperature of that sample. Once you have recorded your weight, get it up to over 100 degrees, 110, 120 degrees for 24, 48 hours, and you've in essence dried out that sample. Then you reweigh it. So that's your wet weight and your dry weight. So you subtract your dry weight from your wet weight. So I'll say that again. So what you do is you subtract your dry weight from your wet weight, the same sample, and that number you go ahead and divide by the wet weight. Boy, I'm going to try saying this again. Instead of using the term wet weight, I'm going to use the total weight. So that's the original sample that was wet. So you take your total weight and subtract your dry weight from it. Then you have the new weight. The new weight needs to be divided by the total weight. That was the wet weight. Then you multiply that times 100, and that gives you your percentage. And you want to be somewhere between 40 and 60%, as I mentioned. Once we get over, let's say 70%, those little pores between the compost material ends up being occupied by water, especially in the lower half of the pile, and the sample can become anaerobic, and then you get that foul odor smell. So that's really important, is to really be paying attention to the aroma. The second thing is, what if the sample's getting too dry? How can you detect that when after you've had more experience and you've done a few weights and you're used to squeezing samples and feeling moisture content? After you feel comfortable with it, you start to realize that if the sample is too dry, a lot of the microbes that are thermophilic microbes, the beneficial aerobic microorganisms in your pile either die off, or they go into a torpid state or a dormant state, and therefore you're not achieving those temperatures that you want to achieve. So you may want to, if you have the appropriate amounts of greens and browns, and that's another topic, but let's say you have a good mixture of compostable material, you have it separated out correctly so that you're not having all the greens in one area and all the browns in another area. You have it mixed up very well, and you're not achieving temperature. It could be because your pile is too dry. So adding moisture, or at least testing it to see what your moisture content is, will be beneficial. So you typically won't get the nice high temperatures, get up into the 150s or 160, if the sample is too dry. So those are just a couple of ways of knowing about it. I hope that addressed that question. I'll go into some of the other challenges. There were some questions. There was a comment about composting kitty litter and having rats get into the pile. So I'll go into that, to a response to dealing with pests, whether it's fruit flies, the bad odors, varmints getting into it, rodents, various rodents getting into your compost pile. How to potentially circumvent that problem, whether it's kitty litter that you're composting or large pile composting, where your backyard composting as well. I'll do that in the comments and question video that's coming up soon. One other question that there was that I'll just quickly address right now. What about GMOs? There's so many genetically modified food sources out there right now that, the animal feeds have been genetically modified. So the poop that came from them that I'm composting has issues. There's residual horizontal gene transfer that we're aware of that happens with some of the genetically modified organisms and getting into other bacteria as well. So that is a concern. That's why I'm a real firm believer in aerobic composting, really getting things up to temperature where we can actually not just destroy the organisms and break down the material that was there, but also damage those genes. In other words, the nucleotides, breaking apart those nucleosides and breaking them down so it's no longer the genes no longer have the ability to be transferred to another organism. So those are the couple of things I just wanted to mention quickly. I hope I wasn't confusing with this whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that pile now. This will be the end of this video. You've seen me turn the piles before, unless there's something significant that shows up. So thanks so much for watching, folks. Please give us a thumbs up if you think this was of value. Please continue to leave comments and ask questions. I really like that interaction. And just be aware, I probably won't be writing out responses to the comments. I'll do it in a comment and question video. I'm just too crazy. So thanks so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye now.